I don't remember not being a reader and writer. As long as I can remember, my life has been filled with books. Recently, I asked my mom about my identity as a reader and writer, and this is part of our conversation.
You were a child that was extremely interested in anything in a book.
According to my mother, I was inquisitive and attentive. I loved to talk, and I loved to listen.
The book started at a very, very young age for you, but your vocabulary started at a very young age. You had 101 words at a year.
My mom attributes my large early vocabulary to a word-rich environment I was talked to and read to all the time. I remember we would go to the mall and I would have enough money to buy a book, maybe like a book a week.
Oh, yes.
But every time we went to the mall, I remember buying a book at the bookstore.
You started when you were, I want to say, 15 months old. And that's where you went when we went to the store. Because, you know, they have books. They
To the
have a
book
little
aisle.
book.
Yeah.
You went to the book aisle and you got a book every single time. They were 98 cents. And that's what you got every time we went to the grocery store.
Because that's what I wanted, or
That's
because
what you
that's what I was
wanted.
allowed to get?
No, that's what you wanted. What do you want? I want a book.
Before I could actually read, I had memorized many of my books, and I would recite them to anyone who would listen.
By the time you were 3, you could pick up a book and look at the picture and actually look like you were reading it.
Mother Goose was one of my favorites. Apparently, in my earliest speaking sentences, I often talked in nursery rhymes.
Nursery rhymes then became part of your vocabulary, and you used nursery rhymes to express yourself, and you used your books that I had read to you to express yourself.
As I was learning to read, I was also learning to write.
Writing your name, all that was started when you were like 3. I think I have a picture that you wrote your name out when you were 3 years old, so you were already associating letters with words at that age.
Going to school changed everything, opening new doors and bringing new words.
Then I don't really remember much about your actual reading. It's just suddenly you were reading. You went to school and that was it.
I remember spending a lot of time by myself reading. So what do you remember about books that I liked or my reading habits as I got older?
You went to your bedroom and you read. You liked poetry real well. You even won a prize in 7th or 8th grade for a poem you wrote. You liked the classics, and you would read classics.
My grandmother, a former school teacher, was an enormous influence on me. She was the one who supplied all those classics my mother remembers me reading.
But I started you guys in the library when
Yeah,
you
I
were maybe
remember.
8 years old. Yeah, 7 years old, because we didn't have TV.
By the time I was in high school, I had come into my own as a reader.
Probably by 14, you were getting books that you just didn't ask me.
Yeah.
You went to the library, you got the books that you wanted to get, and you read them.
I always identified with the characters in books, and I became a part of everything that I read.
You became part of the book. Does that make sense?
Not only did I become a part of what I read, but what I read became a part of me.
You would take your books and pull them into your everyday life.
That idea of pulling books into my everyday life applies even now. I've chosen to follow a path strewn with words and texts, and books guide my way. My mom's assertion that I've always been a reader is one of my truths. Also a truth, I always will be.